Joining us now is House Democrat Chris Welch. It's good to have you with us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I want to get your reaction first to the biggest news of the week here with former Governor Blagojevich. He compared himself in his sort of homecoming tour he compared his court case to that of Dred Scott. He quoted Martin Luther King. He called himself a political prisoner whose freedom was, quote, stolen from him, and compared himself to immigrants who fled oppression under a Nazi regime. Is this man seeing clearly?
Well, he clearly hasn't changed. He's Blagojevich. That's how he was before he went in, and that's how he is now. And I would say if there's anything to sum up the week, it's unfortunate to see that there's no contrition, that he didn't learn anything. You would think that after getting out, whether you agree or disagree with what President Trump did, that he would be remorseful. And I'm sad to see that he's not remorseful.
It's interesting to see, and I think a lot of reasonable people have said 14 years comparatively to other similar crimes like George Ryan, it just didn't quite match up, but you do have that contrition angle as well. If we rewind the clock back to when Governor Blagojevich was very popular in Chicago, he did have a wide swath of support from the black voter base. And how do you explain that? How was he able to tap into that kind of support back then?
Well, Rob Blagojevich is extremely popular still to this day in the black community. He's like a rock star in districts like mine. And that's because he did things that appealed to black voters. He provided health care for kids. He provided things for seniors like free rides. He appealed to the most vulnerable. In many aspects, those are folks in the black community. He was then, and he is now, still a very popular person in African-American circles.
And yet we heard those FBI wiretap tapes where he would discuss the black voter base as something to be taken granted. He would take it for granted, or he would discuss it in sort of unvarnished political calculation terms. Even with now Governor Pritzker, those many years ago, when they were talking about how to, maybe we should put Jesse White in President Obama's Senate seat, or when you hear a politician like that discuss the black voter base in those terms and sort of take them for granted, that can't sit well.
It shouldn't sit well. And if you really pay attention, I heard Blagojevich describe himself this week as a Trumpocrat. Those two guys are extremely similar. He was actually Donald Trump in politics before we ever realized Donald Trump will become a politician.
In what way?
He loves to play to the TV. He loves being in the media and talking things up. And unfortunately, a lot of times people, that's all they see is they see the celebrity side, and they don't really delve any deeper and see what their true beliefs are. Those tapes were played everywhere. But the reality is a lot of people probably still to this day never heard them.
Well, there was other big news this week. Governor Pritzker gave his second annual budget address. There were sort of two budgets in here. One if he gets his progressive income tax, one if he does not.
That's right.
Let's focus on that second part, the one where if voters reject it, like they've done 3 times now in Colorado, the most recent state to put that question to the voters. If voters in Illinois do what they did in Colorado and say, nope, we're not quite ready for the progressive income tax just yet, Governor Pritzker has said, well, there goes the education funding formula. We're not going to give it that full $350 million increase. We're going to shave that about in half, reducing it by $150 million. Is that fair to kids in underfunded school districts?
Well, I think all of us have to be concerned about the equity-based school funding formula that we work so hard to put in place. However, the governor is in a unique position. Pension obligations continue to rise and other pressures on the budget continue to rise. And so he had to come in yesterday or this week and present various scenarios. And he basically was giving us, here's what I would hope for, but if my hopes don't pan out, here's what's really going to happen. And I think he had to do that.
You've got a very interesting push. It's gotten some national headlines even to push, like they've done in California, here in Illinois, to allow college athletes to be paid. I want to break that down a little bit because I think you've got a few different ways they can do that, through endorsements, through merchandise sales, through the university directly even. How is it, or why, let's start with the how, and we'll get to the why in a minute, but how is it that you think college athletes should be paid? What's the best way to do that in a fair way?
So the bill I have pending is not a pay-to-play bill. That's a different issue, and I think it would take a lot more work and significant push to get it done.
Paying them like you pay the pros.
Correct. Schools wouldn't be required to pay any type of salary or anything. what we're saying here is that colleges, universities, coaches, all of these folks are making millions and billions of dollars off of the name, likeness, and image of an athlete. So why shouldn't the athlete be able to also benefit from their own name, likeness, and image? They should be able to go out and sign endorsement deals. They should be able to go out and promote local businesses in these college towns. Nowadays with social media, all of them have social media accounts. They should be allowed to get paid to promote things on their social media. If they do it now, they will lose their eligibility to play under NCAA rules. And that's why there's this national movement all across the country, state by state. People are putting pressure on the NCAA, and Illinois should join that fight. And that's why I've been pushing really hard.
All right, fascinating discussion with House Democrat Chris Welch. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure, always.
And we'll keep covering all these stories as they progress throughout Springfield this year. Thanks again.
And thanks for having me.
We're back in a moment. Nice and easy.
You're good, man.
Yeah, thanks.
Very good.
And we'll edit that one thing. Sorry, there's a big echo here,
Yeah.
and I'd already teed you up for the whole NCAA thing, and then I kind of...
All I heard